Ladies and gentlemen, I'm with Les Binet. He is the most definitive, or should I say most effective voice in the world of effectiveness. So, I mean, as you all know, that effectiveness is today possibly the biggest conversation that's going around in the world, because every single marketing dollar that is being spent, people are asking this question, investors are asking this question, CEOs are asking this question on what is the effective use of that dollar, and Les has a huge body of work around that area. So today we'll try and talk about some of the basic principles and tenets that he has been observing and seeing from working across multiple brands in multiple countries, in multiple geographies. So
yes.
Let's thank you for all your time.
Thank you very much. I mean, I work for adam&eveDDB, which is the London office of the DDB network, and my rather fanciful title is Group Head of Effectiveness. So I basically I do three things. I help advertisers to measure the effectiveness of their advertising and marketing communications, and then I try and identify what the ingredients of effective work are, and then I try and use all that to help them improve their effectiveness. And when I talk about effectiveness, I mean effectiveness in hard business terms, you know, dollars, basically, what drives revenue and profit. And I kind of do that on a day-to-day basis, but I also, I have the freedom to do some, if you like, kind of semi-academic work on behalf of the advertising industry as a whole. So together with my colleague, Peter Field, I've built up quite a body of knowledge. And I suspect that's probably what you're going to tap into today.
Absolutely, Les. This is precisely what we are planning to tap into today, so that audience in our market, and maybe since on our platform, it would be possibly across the globe, get a sense of what are the tenets of effectiveness and what are the learnings that you have over the period of time. What we are seeing increasingly is that the whole idea of brand communication, I mean, I'm not saying the entire gamut of brand building, but brand communication is broadly in two large buckets. The one is what we call maybe the desire building or opinion creation, or having some sort of an idea or image or association with the brand. And another is to distribute the desire in the most effective manner. So in our market, many times I have used the term desire and distribution. So I need to see a Mercedes Benz and start drooling over it, and then somebody needs to tell me that what is the most efficient way for me to buy the car or rent the car.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And we think both part of the equation is equally important. So
yes,
if this is the kind of construct, so according to you, what role does legacy media like print and out of home and television, what is the role in this new digitally efficient area where distribution is really super fast and cheap and maybe efficient?
Okay, so you use a slightly different terminology to the terminology that I use, but I think we're talking about the same thing. So my colleague Peter Field and I make the distinction between what we call brand building and activation. So brand building is what you call about, you talked about building desire and opinion. The way I see brand building is it's about creating memory structures in people's heads that will influence their decision making when they come to buy. So making sure that they know the brand, that that the brand is firmly linked to reasons to buy. So you're talking about Mercedes. People know Mercedes. They know what kinds of cars Mercedes, they know that Mercedes is a car brand. They know what kinds of cars are available, so that, if they think, for example, of of a hatchback, they'll know that there is a Mercedes hatchback. So that, so that there's these linkages, and also linkages to other less functional things like, well, functional things like perceptions of the quality of the Mercedes brand and engineering, but also more emotive things like associations with status and wealth and premium quality and fast cars and so on. So you create these mental linkages, and the idea is basically to change how people think and feel about Mercedes, so that when they come to buy a car, they immediately think of Mercedes, they immediately think well of Mercedes, they immediately put Mercedes on their shopping list. So that's brand building, and that's a long-term job, and it's primarily about putting things in people's heads, and also to some extent into the culture.
So are you talking about something like mental availability?
Yeah, so mental availability is definitely part of it. So mental availability is ensuring that at the moment when the brand is relevant, the brand comes to mind quickly and easily, and with a rich network of positive associations. Depending on exactly how you talk about mental availability, I know when Ehrenberg Bass talk about mental availability, they tend to talk about it as if it's primarily about just the brand coming to mind at all. And that is the primary job. So you want to make sure that when someone thinks about buying a car, like, Mercedes has got to be in there, and one of the brands that they immediately think of. But the other thing is that people have got to think and feel good things about Mercedes. So it's about the associations and feelings and emotions that go with Mercedes. And that's why mere mental availability in the coming to mind sense is not enough. The primary job is coming to mind, but the secondary job is coming to mind with positive thoughts and feelings. So all of that is mental. It's all in the head, and sometimes social as well. So brands like, particularly with fashion brands, you're making the brand stand for something in society as a whole. So it becomes part of the cultural language. So that's brand building, is building all that stuff up, and it takes time, it takes repetitions, it takes reinforcement over years, so that like I mentioned, that Aston Martin, Aston Martin stands for something, and when we think of Aston Martin, it's quite likely we might think of James Bond and all those sorts of things. Now, the second part of it, what you call distribution and what I call activation, is about, I call it activation because it's about activating those memory structures. So those networks are in people's heads, and you're activating them to get someone to do something now or very soon. So to go back to the Mercedes example, you might hit someone with a message, find someone who's in the market to buy a car right now, hit them with a message which reminds them of what a great car Mercedes is, and helps them to act straight away by doing things like telling them where the dealership is, giving them a link to the website, giving them a digital brochure, giving them an offer, any of those things that activate the memory structures, get it all jangling up here, so we go, oh, I've just remembered how much I want a Mercedes and how good they are, and then removing barriers between that desire and the purchase. So I call that activation, you call it distribution. As Ehrenberg Bass point out, a big part of this work is, it's, if you like, what they call physical availability. It's making the product easy to buy. So you want to make sure that people, the brand comes to mind easily. Brand comes to mind and is easy to find, as somebody once said. So the brand comes to mind easily and with a halo of good thoughts and feelings, and it's easy to find and easy to buy, ideally with one-click ordering. So you need both those jobs, and you need them working together. And in our work, we talk about the fact that you need them working together in balance, and that for any given brand in any given situation, there's probably a right balance. For any given brand, you need to find out what your right balance is. But if one is to look at mature brands, you know, the kinds of big brands that we have data on, overall markets and categories, a typical ratio is 60-40, 60% brand, 40% activation. It may be very different, for example, for, like, you know, if you're a local taxi firm, or if you're a small brand that's just launched, or if you're a B2B brand, and we talk in our work about how this ratio is different in different situations. But for most big brands, they need slightly more brand than activation. And this is the digital problem in a nutshell, because a great deal of digital marketing focuses on activation, and a great number of digital marketers are only really comfortable with activation, and they only really promote activation. So the digital revolution has seen too much activation and too little brand.